shots where Lantis' face was very pointy.
Well, his design is very pointy in general. That was just how Clamp rolled in the 90s.
He's actually 3 Doritos stacked on top of each other.
Hi, and welcome to Chatty AF, the Anime Feminist podcast. I am Caitlin, your intrepid host, and today we are discussing the final 14 episodes of the Magic Knight Rayearth TV show. Worry not, this is not the end of our rewatch-along. I am joined today by Shojo YouTuber extraordinaire Colleen and longtime friend of the podcast, Megan.
Okay, in case you skipped to the very end like a weirdo, my name is Megan D. I run the manga test drive where I review the first volumes of various manga and have been doing so for over a decade. My pronouns are she, her, and what a journey this has been.
What a long, strange journey it's been.
Indeed.
And I am Colleen of Colleen's Manga Rex. I do YouTube videos about shoujo and josei manga. My pronouns are they, them, and it has been a long ride.
So, this has been a little bit of a cursed podcast production. You guys asked for it on our Patreon. It took a long time. But we finally did it. We finally made it happen. Do just want to note at the top that this is a series that deals with grief and loss. And I don't know when this episode is going to come out, but we are recording it a few weeks after the passing of Nick Dupree, who was a friend and colleague of mine. So some parts of the discussion might feel a little personal, might hit a little close to home. I just wanted everyone to have that context.
I mean, it wouldn't be a Clamp series if it didn't get heavy at some point.
Clamp has 2 modes, either inappropriate light or extremely heavy. So, let's talk about the production. A lot of this show looked like ass. It looked really bad for a lot of it, guys.
Yeah.
I don't think it was that bad, but they definitely had to kind of spread things out a little more just because they're dealing with so many robots.
Magic Knight Rayearth kind of has, I feel like it has 2 modes. Either it's the most beautiful show that you've ever seen, with the gorgeous hand-drawn characters and like expressive faces, as I said, hand-drawn robots, beautiful rich colors, or we're getting into Gaku and handsome territory.
Oh, it's not that bad.
There were some shots where Lantis' face was very pointy.
Well, his design is very pointy in general. That was just how Clamp rolled in the 90s.
He's actually 3 Doritos stacked on top of each other.
I am very proud of myself because I was watching the last episode, which did look good. And I said to myself, this episode especially looks exactly like Shamanic Princess, which is a largely forgotten 90s OVA. And I looked up the credits, and lo and behold, the animation director was Atsuko Ishida, who was the character designer for Rayearth and for Shamanic Princess.
Makes sense.
Good job, me. Good job, me. We also had mechs that were original to the anime this time. They did not look like Clamp. You could really see the influence of Hirano there, I felt like.
Yeah, and this is something I found about while we were watching through this. A lot of those original mecha designs were done by a guy named Yasuhiro Moriki. He is a previous colleague of Toshihiro Hirano. He worked with him previously at the time of the show's making on Hades Project Zio Rhymer, the Vampire Princess Mew OVA, and not the original Ixter 1, but the Ixter 1 sequels. He's a pretty prolific designer, mechanical and otherwise. He's still working to this day. But in the 90s, around the time the show was made, people would have known him primarily as a mech designer for a favorite of yours, Caitlin, both Banner of the Stars and Crest of the Stars.
I wouldn't call those favorites.
You like that show, and you remember it.
You're going to get me in trouble because they are kind of Imperialism is Good, the anime.
Look, I'm a Legend of Galactic Heroes fans. I feel your pain. Anyway, he also did mechanical designs for Martian successor Nadesco, Silent Mobius, both the film and the TV show. Getting into the 2000s, he worked on things like Gadanar and Gravion. Like, he's not a big name as far as mechanical design goes, but I really do like his designs here. They're very sleek and slick, but elegant. It reminds me a little bit of Yutaka Izubuchi, like some of the work he was doing in the 80s and the 90s on everything from like Dunbind to Pat Labor. It's good stuff.
It is interesting that those designs contrast very strongly with the Clamp designs, because I feel like Eagle's mech, that I can't remember the name of right
FTO.
now. The FTO. Like, the FTO is also intentionally designed to be kind of sleek and minimalist compared to, like, the very elaborate... do they use Mashin or Rune God in the anime?
It's Rune God in the dub, at least.
Well, whatever they are, whatever they're calling them. The design of the mechs that the knights use, very elaborate, very detailed, very fantasy, while the FTO is very mechanical feeling. But the Nova's mechs feel even more so like something you would see in, like, Appleseed or something.
Yeah, I can see where you get that.
Unfortunately, with mech talk, I can't say anything. Magic Knight Rayearth Code Geass, probably the only mech series I've ever seen.
I mean, we're hitting pretty much the limit of my ability to talk about mechs here.
My ability is just whatever Clamp has worked on.
Like, I could go deeper if I really felt like it, but, you know, I have to be considerate of my audience.
And me.
Y'all are part of the audience.
I did have to have a conversation with Jared about whether I'm a mech fan, because I started saying, I'm not really interested in mechs. I just like Planet With and Promare and Gundam Wing, and I have thoughts and feelings about how the nightmares in Code Geass feel.
Join us, Caitlin. Join us.
You're taking the step.
Anyway, let's talk about something else. We got new theme songs.
Yes, finally.
Oh my god. I forgot about the last theme song, the last opening, which is honestly one of the most gorgeous anime openings of the 90s, possibly of all time. Just, I love that song so much.
It's a good song. It's also just a beautiful opening, and that was actually directed by Hirano himself. And considering the high bar that the first one set, that's saying something. But we had to wait 43 episodes for it.
It was the last few episodes.
I haven't had to wait this long for a new opening since I watched Gundam Wing, where the second opening doesn't show up until episode 41 of 50.
I'm only able to, like, hear the first one from the first season in my head. I don't even remember what the new one sounded like. So I think that's how little impact it had on me, especially with being so late in the series.
I had a CD that was a compilation of anime theme songs, and that one was on it, along with the original first opening and the Fushigi Yugi opening and the Macross 7 opening. It was a good album. I think I had Just Communication on it. Some banger opening songs on that one.
Yeah, it's no surprise that when Media Blasters originally released this on VHS and DVD, they just skipped that second opening entirely, and I do not blame them because that second opening is butt.
It's just mid.
It's very mid.
Mediocre.
You know what?
Mediocre.
You know what else is kind of mid? The writing on this part of the show, because as before, the head writer for the second season of Magic Knight Rayearth was Nanase Okawa, the head writer of Clamp, and she's a perfectly fine manga writer. As a TV screenwriter, not so much.
Okay, I'm going to push back on you. I'm going to push back on this one. I am going to pull up a list of her credits on Anime News Network because I feel like she did write all of the episodes or most of the episodes for the Cardcaptor Sakura anime, which I felt was very much the better version of that story. I think what is going on here is that there was a lot of push and pull between the direction Hirono wanted to take with the TV version and what Clamp had already written. Because, I mean, there was that interview that we discussed in the last episode, right? Where they're kind of talking about the differences between the two series. And he's like, yeah, I didn't read the manga before I made the first series. And Okawa's like, yeah, that was weird.
I mean, I would also note that Cardcaptor Sakura came after this show, and she hadn't really done much anime adaptation up to that point, so it could be that, but it also could be some of her inexperience showing through, because I felt like a lot of the changes and choices made in this section, and the one that preceded it, came a lot from a writer, like, second-guessing their choices before. Like, they wrote the story previously, and they went back, like, well, what if I change this? What if I change that? It's like, no, you should have stuck to what you had previously.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't in the room, so we can't know. But my feeling is more that Hirono wanted to take it in a certain direction, and there was not a lot of cohesion between what he wanted and what Okawa was planning for had already written for the series. But I don't know. You know, we are not there. We can only infer based on interviews. And we'll get into what a giant mess that story was in a minute.
Oh, I was going to say, I do think at the very least there were some things in this batch of episodes that at least address some of the problems we had in the first half of this season. Just like they were filling out the world a bit more. They got rid of the fairy girl. The only thing is just the Chizetta and Farin were still like pretty meh. But I think at the very least, they were filling in some gaps in this part that were at least better than the first 15 episodes of this season.
That I agree on.
Yeah. I want to get like a full discussion about kind of what a mess the story was in a minute. But first, I want to talk about kind of how we personally felt about the series and about how we reacted to it. I had a really hard time staying engaged with it up until the last few episodes. Probably partially because of that aforementioned messy plot. Also, probably because of stuff that's going on in my life. So not 100% on the show. Although I did snap to attention every time they showed Eagle in that, tight black turtleneck. Why did they kill him? Why did they kill him?
As for me, I do feel like the show got better once it stopped pretending that Chisetta and Farin mattered in the slightest and kind of got back to where the canon story was. But even then, it still kind of drags its heels. But I will say, it ended beautifully.
I agree on that. I really like the ending, and I think this half of the season was better than the first half of the season. And it is just because they were spending a little less time on, like, the different countries that didn't matter. And, like, they got rid of the, like, slop characters that didn't matter. And they actually, like, focused on the characters that were meant to be the focus of the season. So, yeah, I enjoyed this back half more than the first half of season 2. And the ending was really good.
Mm-hmm. I thought the last few episodes really pulled it together.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, probably around when the new theme song started up. and when they started focusing on kind of the relationship between Lantis, Eagle, and Hikaru, they were being written as like a triad, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't just me.
No.
I was like, Lantis has to choose between his boyfriend and his girlfriend.
I mean, I'm not the first
But
one to make
also-
the joke that this part of the show is pretty much, hi, I'm Hikaru, this is my boyfriend Lantis, and this is his boyfriend Eagle.
Yeah.
But they also, Nova, who is Hikaru's, just like, yeah, you're in love with Eagle. You're in love with Lantis. Too fucking bad. I'm going to stop you from having either one of them.
And Clan was like, yeah, we're down with OT3.
Colleen, do you know how the manga ends?
I don't, so that'll be fun for me when they start releasing the second part.
Okay. It is very different. Some of the themes are similar, but it goes in some truly wild directions.
I can't wait. I love me an insane clamp plot twist. Whatever happens.
This is in probably like top percentile, 99th percentile of insane clamp plot twist endings.
Oh, hell yeah. I hope someone loses an eye.
Oh, it's wild in a different way.
I'm so excited now. I didn't know that the ending was that different.
So let's talk about this mess of a plot. When we last left our heroines, Umi and Fuu had been taken captive by Farin and Chizeta. Meanwhile, Rayearth is broken, and Hikaru must fight Nova in her mind to fix him with the help of the fake Persea. Now, it is worth noting, nothing that happens with Farin and Chizeta matter.
Nope.
Not a whit.
I will admit,
Nothing.
I skipped Umi's episode in this stretch. I did stick around at least for Fuu's, mostly because her interactions with Asuka were quite fun. Like, honestly, Fuu should go into daycare, because she's very good at talking to small children. Like, she's very gentle and patient, but she's firm when she needs to be.
And you know what? You need some trickster energy if you're going to work with young children. People don't know that, but you also need to be a little bit chaotic. And we've
Fuu has
seen
that.
Fuu's got a little bit of the chaos in her heart. The Umi episode did have a really good sword fighting scene, though.
I was going to say the same. I thought that was the fight between her and the twins was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I'll admit I skipped it because I am not sitting through another half hour of her being, ew, weird gay genies.
I don't think she did that so much. Mostly she was squabbling with Tarta and Tatra, and she was squabbling with Tarta. Which one is which?
I could not tell you.
Tatra,
She was fighting with the fiery one, while the Kikuko Inoue one sat by the side drinking tea. But it had some really good, really good fight sequence. Honestly, one of the best in the series.
yeah, one of the positives of this half in general is it's much more action heavy, which helps it a lot.
So, Rayearth gets fixed, la la la. Eagle attacks. He ends up imprisoned in Sephiroth Castle. The knights actually go and hang out with the civilians in the civilian part of the castle. So, all of a sudden, Sephiroth feels populated. Kind of.
Mostly by children.
It still didn't give a lot of sense of like what it is like as a society. It was mostly just them running around a big open field with women and children and cute small animals.
And
singing.
a musical. Yeah, I was going to say in a musical break.
True.
But while they're there, knights get attacked by monsters from Lady Debinar. But then they realize the monsters are coming from the fear inside of people's hearts, and they must defeat their fear. And the children stand up and say, "Don't be afraid. Trust in the Magic Knights," which is some foreshadowing for later. Eagle escapes his prison using bombs, and he and Hikaru end up at the Crown Room for reasons.
I was saying, because we have to get the plot on track.
Yes.
Bring
We
it back.
can't figure out a reason for them to both end up there. We get a flashback to Emerald becoming Pillar and falling in love with Zagato, while Lantis sits there and says, This is wrong. They both enter, and they come out alive, which should be impossible. And it seems really intense that if someone wanted to try to enter there to see if they could become the pillar and they were not deemed worthy, they would get killed. That's a lot.
That's clamp.
But they both come out alive, which shouldn't be possible, because apparently they are both pillar candidates.
And notably, the pillar crown starts to change shape.
And Debonair is like, no!
And this is where Lantis has a hard time deciding who his partner's going to be. The pillar is actually a metaphor for Lantis figuring out his bisexuality.
It is. The pillar is a metaphor for Lantis's pillar. Oh, this is a children's show. Debonair takes Lantis prisoner so that Nova can torture him more efficiently, and make Hikaru upset more efficiently. Sephiroth starts to fall apart, and Adazam and Chizeta and Farin do some stuff. It really doesn't matter. It's nothing. It's nothing.
It matters in the sense that they all kind of formally give up their claim to the pillar.
Yeah, but they didn't need to be there in the first place.
I feel like Chizeta had a little bit better of a reason to be there, but Farin was just like, hey, this princess wants to... Like, it was such a nothing reason that one made literally no sense at all. I feel like that one... Farin did not need to be there whatsoever. I feel like they could have fleshed out Chizeta a little bit better if they wanted, if they got rid of Farin.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I could see kind of Farin from the perspective of like a small child who's reading this manga, because the theme is like, are the sacrifices that you're going to be asked to make worth it? You need to stop and think about what you actually want before you start seeking power, just because you think that you'll be able to get whatever you want if you have it, because that's not the case.
That's true. And then in that case, I would say they would have to get rid of one or the other. I do feel like they could have done something with either one of these as long as one of them was gone. Because they were already focusing so much on AutoZone that it was like, pick one or the other here.
Yeah, and Asuka is honestly pretty obnoxious, and I could live without her.
Yeah.
But also Chizeta has the bad homophobic genies.
Pick your poison.
Yeah, right. Everyone claps to believe in fairies and defeat Lady Debonair. The knights fight Nova, and they realize that Nova is just part of Hikaru, and she must accept herself. Eagle dies. Hikaru ends up pillar, and Hikaru says, "No, I reject being the sole source of happiness for everyone. Sephiroth belongs to the people of Sephiroth, and everyone should play a role in this." And they go back to Tokyo.
They immediately go back to Tokyo.
Yeah. Sephiroth's not really great at giving people a chance to settle into a transition. They also got transported immediately after killing Emerald.
Doesn't give you time to say your goodbyes or resolve your romantic tensions. Nope, you're done.
Mm-hmm. Nope. So yeah, the story was a mess. There were a lot of characters who just didn't get to do anything. They just seemed like they were there they were there because they were in the first series, and thus they needed to be there again.
Yeah.
Ascot didn't get to do anything.
Poor Ascot.
Poor Ascot. He aged himself up and everything for Umi.
And he saves her when she's in the clutch. And even afterwards, she's like, "I love you as a friend." And I was just like, ooh.
Oh, yeah. She's like, "I love you. I love you like I love Clef." And Caldina. And he's just like, oh no.
Because Okawa is still pushing this notion that Umi and Clef should be a couple. Why?
I thought it was so funny in the dub that I don't know if it was the same in the sub too, but oh, I forget her name already. Tan girl who is from Chizetta as well.
Caldina.
Yeah.
Caldina, yeah. So she's like, why are you in love with that child-looking elf guy? I was like, get his ass. No one wants those little tiny hands touching their thigh. It's so, it just is, visually, he's just strange looking compared to Umi.
Oh, well, I have good news about the OVA that we're going to watch for the next episode. Spoilers, we're going to watch the OVA, guys. Real good news there.
Oh boy.
Fuu and Ferio are never in the same room in this half, even though they are the most convincing couple in this.
Yeah, they are, because he comes to save her from Fallen once she's done with her competition.
That's right.
Not that he really needed to. She was basically getting ready to go, but she's like, okay.
My boyfriend's here.
Okay, but like once the plot gets going, they had nothing to do.
Nope.
Yeah.
Hikaru and Umi had nothing to do, and I feel like they could have pushed on that a little bit more. Like they touched on it a tiny bit where it's like Hikaru is not really letting them in the way that she had used to during the first part of their journey. But I feel like everything gets so tied up with Lantis and Eagle that their friendship just kind of gets pushed to the side, except for a couple of exchanges.
Yeah. And also
And even the...
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, the big fight, I didn't feel like Umi and Fuu were not there at all, it felt like. It was just like Hikaru's fight.
Yeah.
And that was it.
One of the big criticisms of this half of the show is that it very much becomes the Hikaru show.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know how it is. You get a boyfriend and you stop making time for your friends, and then you get a second boyfriend, and then you really don't have time for your friends, and your boyfriends are boyfriends with each other.
Also, if we're talking underdeveloped romances, I have to be perfectly frank, that's kind of equally true for Hikaru and Lantis. They barely spend any time together, and most of it is just her being so anxious and him not saying anything. Like, they have, one sentimental scene where they hang out near a fountain, and Lantis gives her this magic mirror necklace of love that does become plot relevant. But
I did feel like Eagle and Hikaru had a much more interesting relationship.
yes.
I agree.
And
Because they were on a wavelength with each other. They were both things are really fucked up. I don't know how to deal with what I am going through. But they both are like, I'm going to become the pillar to get through this, and I'm going to have to fight these inner demons that are haunting me. In Eagle's case, it was his illness. In Hikaru's case, it was an externalized version of all of her fears and doubt and sadness.
And yeah, and even the dynamic between Lantis and Eagle, because they have that history together. So there, there's interesting tension between them. And altogether as an OT3, it's fine. But Hikaru's kind of the weak link here. And I will also note that as novel as it was to see, Lantis, the big strong dude with the lightning sword, get damseled for once, that plot turn should be more interesting than it really turned out. They didn't really do much with it.
He just kind of stood there.
Yeah, Nova basically puts him in the heart of her mech, and he's just like, you can't hit me, I'll get Lantis. And the weird thing, at least for me, once again, being a Gundam nerd as I am, is it reminded me a lot of the end of G Gundam. For those who have not seen that show, the protagonist...
I have not.
The protagonist, Domon, has a engineer assistant love interest named Rain, and due to plot reasons that are too complicated and tangential to talk about here, she's basically swallowed by the Devil Gundam, which is like this giant, creeping, evil machine that's threatening everybody. And at the end of the show, Domon doesn't defeat it, by using his Gundam, but because the Gundam is literally using Rain as, to power it, and she can't get out because she's so sad. And Domon basically literally has to tell her out loud that he loves her to kind of break the spell, release her, and for them to attack together. It's honestly a really great ending. And there's a bit of that energy here, but not as much. Although I do like the fact that it's Eagle who ultimately saves Lantis while the knights are fighting. He's the one who actually frees him from the suit, just before he dies from soap opera wasting disease.
I do like Lantis and Hikaru, but I don't think it was at all, the dynamic between them I thought was better in the first half, and it was just not existent in the second half, and it felt more like they were setting up Hikaru and Eagle in the second half. So, I can see, their relationship from the first part of the season, but yeah, the second part of the season, it just did not feel like it was there at all, other than Hikaru being like, oh my god, he hates me.
Yeah, it might have been stronger if Lantis, ever said more than a few words at any given time.
Yeah, it's a little bit like boy and girl in proximity equals romance?
Question mark?
So yeah, it is definitely the weakest of the three possible combinations that we have getting around, that we have going on here.
Between Lantis and Eagle, Hikaru and Eagle, and no, because I still think Umi and Clef is the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, I meant it that three way.
I was like, so in the three-way or in the other one? Because Umi and Clef, they clear being the worst.
I mean, if we're talking about, all of the couples, I actually really like Caldina and Lafarga.
They're cute.
We don't get a lot with them, but they're
just hanging out.
They've got this, married vibe. They're both grown-ups. They don't have time for, all of the adolescent, staring at each other blushingly. They have long since moved past that. It was in the first season, but the scene where they're, talking in, I think it was Caldina's room, and, she just, comes over and, sits on his lap. And it's yeah, that's a relationship between two adults who know each other and feel comfortable with each other and are talking through what's going on in their lives together. And I know that I am not, at this point in my life, the target audience for this series. But it was nice seeing that.
So how you mentioned earlier that the ending to the manga is very different from the ending of the show? Mm-hmm. I think now is the point we need to address that. And I see this not as a flaw of the show, but just something...
Hold on. It sounds like Colleen did not want to be fully spoiled on the ending.
It's okay.
Okay.
I'll live.
Okay.
I can see hearing about it will be just as fun as experiencing it.
It really is completely buck wild.
Well, because the plot structure itself is so different, because much of the second half of the manga is the girls going around to the various factions, and they're not so much fighting them as just telling them, no, you don't want to do this, you don't want to be the pillar, just go away. And then, of course, the pillar selection has to be made. But at the end, they reveal Mukona as God.
I'm trying to wrap my head around that. I mean, I guess I could understand that, because, from my knowledge of Tsubasa, he's basically God there.
Yeah, Mukona is the god of this world.
Does he become something? Like how, Nero does?
No, he's just Mukona. He gets wings. I've got the manga in front of me right now.
And it also ends with, What would you call this new land, audience?
Yes. So the big reveal, and I have it right in front of me, like literally I'm holding it, is that Makona created Earth.
Wait!
And, and he was disappointed because the humans there kept fighting. It was a world where everyone had an equal will and they kept using it to kill each other. So he decided to create another world where it was all supported by one person's will. And that person's will would be what set the course for the world. And that was how they had peace. And everyone's just like, hey, still pretty fucked up that one person has to sacrifice themselves in order to keep this world peaceful.
So
They're
yeah.
going against God.
Yeah, they're fighting. Oh, he has devil wings at one point? No, that's just lighting. That's just lighting.
So this is just telling me I need to make a meme where Makona is God in the creation of Adam painting.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And his little paw is going to touch Adam's finger.
His little paw is going to touch Clef's baby hand.
No! And I'll make sure to Photoshop Clef's baby hand onto Makona.
But yeah, this is why Makona was able to just like manifest food and shelter, because it's God. It can
This is
manifest
God.
anything.
He's not just a walking Deus Ex Machina. He's just Deus. No Machina needed.
So, like, do they explain why Makona helps them? Does he agree that the pillar system is messed up, and in which case is God flawed?
I don't
There's
know.
a lot to be explored here.
I don't know if Clamp thought that far.
I do remember Okawa saying that in the manga, she felt like she had written herself into a corner. So that might have just been like, I don't know.
Makona's God! That is so funny.
Oh.
All right, well, now I can't wait to Photoshop this, and I will be posting it on Twitter.
Yes, yes, yes. I can't wait. Another difference is that Eagle survives in the manga, and it is quite literally a canon OT3.
Yes.
So what is with the anime wanting to kill people they don't need to?
Drama.
Homophobia. I don't think it's homophobia.
Yeah, because they killed Persea. They did not need to. And then they killed Eagle, and they did not need to.
I think that's just Hirana's a weirdo for killing characters.
I guess, because literally there was no reason to kill Eagle. Like, he was already dying from anime disease, so like...
Either that, or it's just like, ah, damn it, Megumi Ogata is just so expensive now. We can only afford her so long.
Get rid of him.
So yeah, let's talk about the themes and motifs.
Yeah, because as silly and flawed as the show can be at times, there is some good thematic material to chew on here.
So as we discussed in the previous episode, and was made explicit in these episodes, Nova is the manifestation of Hikaru's fear, sadness, and doubt that she felt when she killed Emerald, that she tried to escape from when she came back to Earth and could not get away from. Nova wants to kill her because Hikaru has left her alone. Hikaru would not recognize and acknowledge these feelings.
Or the fact that Nova attacks the people and things that Hikaru loves because you love them so much. What if they die? The only way to protect them is to push them away.
And she feels like she doesn't deserve them either. She doesn't deserve to love Lantis. She doesn't deserve to love Umi or Fuu because she sees herself as this killer now. But she she won't acknowledge those feelings. And so those feelings will not go away and in fact try to keep destroying her life.
And because she is potentially the pillar, that's why it manifests as Nova, where this doesn't necessarily happen with the other Magic Knights. Her connection to Saphiro is just that strong that it can literally manifest her feelings into a being who is still very much kind of gay for Hikaru. I mean, particularly at the early end of this stretch, it's not gay subtext between Hikaru and Nova at this point. It's just text. I mean, Nova...
They do kiss in the last opening.
Yeah, they kiss in that last opening. Nova also kisses her, like, during Hikaru's, dreadful magic coma. So yeah, it's like, does it still count as gay if it's a manifestation of your own feelings or not?
You'll have to ask pro shippers if self-cest is okay.
Oh, y'all, we cannot do the pro-ship, anti-ship thing here.
Oh, dear.
I reject. I'm making a cross with my fingers.
And
not bringing that energy here.
As much as the show struggled with keeping characters around who weren't kept around the first time, I do like what the show ultimately did with Alcyone as a contrast to Hikaru and her guilt. Alcyone has just completely let herself be swallowed by her guilt and despair. She cannot move on past her feelings for Sagato. She basically cannot function to help save Saphiro with her magic power. She ultimately becomes a vessel for, Debonair herself, a force of entropy, and she basically gives into her despair and dies. She is a cautionary tale for what Hikaru could become if she lets those feelings overcome her.
Right, because you can't ignore the feelings that come up in grief, including the ugly ones, including the self-hatred, including the guilt. But you can't just completely give into them. You have to be able to figure out a way to move forward. Sorry, this is a little bit of an emotional topic for me right now. Because I have lost a friend. I have lost my job. It has been a really hard few months for me, and I have felt a lot of the same kinds of feelings that Hikaru and Alcyone are going through in this show, and I am a largely healthy, self-actualized adult. But the first few days after losing my job, I couldn't get off the couch. And it was with the help of my friends that I was able to, function enough to eat. I'm being really vulnerable here, guys.
It's okay.
You're okay.
And so the last few weeks have largely been a process of, accepting the feelings that I am still feeling about the way that they let me go and how senseless it feels and felt. And trying to get ready to move on and find a new job, find a new school, find new co-teachers and children that I can have these strong relationships the same way that I did before. So yeah, no, I am not someone who needs Magic Knight Rayearth to help me process my feelings. I've been using Persona 3 for that more because I am a big believer in using fiction to help process. But Magic Knight Rayearth is a children's series, and sometimes children go through some really heavy shit. So I can see this as a really important way for children to get kind of the assurances of just it's okay that you have these feelings, and you can look at them inside yourself and you can say, you are a part of me. I acknowledge it and I accept it. And that's okay. You will be okay. You also have to let yourself be okay.
Yes, and that you need to reach out to others to help you and to vocalize how you're feeling and to let others support you in turn, even if you don't feel at the time you are worthy of it, because that's what ultimately helps Hikaru in the end.
And if I can just get on my little Shojo,
Yeah,
my little
do it.
Shojo, what am I thinking? The
Pedestal? Soapbox?
Soapbox, thank you. I kept wanting
Podium?
to say stool. I was like, what?
You turn the chair around.
So kids. Yeah, I think that is why I am so, like, advocating for shoujo to be a thing all the time, because I feel like it's a kid's show, but it's largely, like, geared towards girls, and I feel like if we didn't have that, we wouldn't get too many shows in the first place where girls will get to see a character like Hikaru and have something be like, hey, you're still worthy even if you did something bad, even if you think that you're a bad person, like, you're still worthy and you can get through this. And I feel like you wouldn't get to see that very often if you didn't have stories from shoujo manga like this, that focus on young girls and, like, helping them self-actualize and stuff like that. And then I step off my soapbox.
Turn the chair back, facing forward.
Yeah. Okay, normal conversation now.
No, but I mean, I agree. And despite what some people may say, like, I am a big fan of shoujo as a way for particularly a young female audience to take a look at those feelings, at those desires. And I might, as an adult, be like, I hope everyone reading this realizes that this is not actually something that you should aspire to, even if you are indulging in the fantasy. Let's have a conversation about it. But I still think that their existence is important and can be helpful to people. Going back to talking about Persona 3, also, the Persona 3 having a version that has a female protagonist really did underline to me the difference in how you experience art with a protagonist that you can that matches the way that you identify.
Yeah.
Playing Persona with a female protagonist was a very different experience for me than playing with a male protagonist, in a way that I had never really gotten to experience before, because there aren't a lot of games like that with female protagonists. And so everything that I was going through in the game I was able to, like, feel more embodied. So yeah, it is really important that we have shoujo manga in series that are explicitly aimed at young female audiences that deal with this ugliness.
And even just if they're there for, well, not even just if they're there for this, but, like, showing the perspective to people who may not be used to it too. So even just to, like, say, hey, well, have you checked out this different perspective than the one that's, the common default of society? So just having the variety as well.
Yeah.
I think, and that's another big reason why I think it's so important, is it gives variety to the options for manga and anime, and even because all the age demographics are different in shoujo too. It's not like every shoujo is for, like, 8 to 12-year-olds. Like, they have them for all different ages. And I just think that variety is necessary.
Yes. Rayearth is specifically a very young skewing manga that ran in
Nakayoshi.
Yeah.
Nakayoshi, which is a magazine that is aimed particularly at a younger demographic. Honestly, Rayearth was really revolutionary for shoujo manga. The fact that it had mechs in it, it might be the first shoujo manga with actual mecha.
I truly cannot think of another shoujo that has mecha.
Same here.
So.
Like, I think we talked about the history of the manga a little bit in our first episode, but after Sailor Moon, which used tokusatsu structures, was a huge hit, Nakayoshi was like, maybe we can try something that kind of incorporates more stuff that's quote-unquote for boys. And Clamp was like, yeah, let's make a manga that resembles like the video games that we like to play. With action and swords and mecha.
It was kind of the spirit of the era, because this is the same era where Gundam Wing is happening, where, hey, what if we try to make a Gundam show that's kind of targeted towards girls and women? This is the same era that brings us Escaflowne, which you've obviously talked about quite in depth previously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's really important to have a variety of series aimed at a variety of demographics.
Funny how that works.
So one thing that I did feel like was interesting is that while it was important for Hikaru to acknowledge all of her negative feelings that she was facing, Debonair was the manifestation of the collective fear of the people of Sephira without a pillar. And so they have to say, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Deny that fear. Don't feel afraid, or it'll just get worse. Which felt a little a little contradictory, shall we say?
No, I think it can make sense.
I definitely noticed that too. When I was watching it and they were like having the kids be like, "Don't cry." I'm like, what is the message here?
Mm-hmm. No.
Like, not crying isn't gonna not keep you from feeling the thing. You're just not crying. You're not releasing it. So what a weird, like, dichotomy of messages we have here.
If you are scared, you're ruining it for everyone with your negative feelings.
I think there's a logic to it, and let me explain. I think they can work if you approach the way Hikaru deals with this more on the personal, individual level. Like, yes, you need to acknowledge all of your feelings, however positive or negative that you can be. But on a larger scale, on a group scale, that if you let fear overrun you, then bad things can happen because everybody is panicking and not focusing properly on what needs to be done.
I see what you're saying.
I see it. I think that it could have been better stated.
Yeah, that's fair.
'Cause working with children, you don't tell a child not to cry. You see that a child is crying, you acknowledge their feelings, and then you give them the tools to continue. So maybe this was a little bit more nuanced than they had time for, because they had to spend time with, I don't know, Eagle and Lantis staring deeply into each other's eyes.
We can't care about these kids. We have homoerotic subtext to get to.
But instead of the kids saying, like, don't cry, you have to trust the knights, don't let doubt into your heart, saying, yes, we're all afraid. We need to figure out a way to handle that fear. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was thinking, like, if they just said, like, you need to trust them, and then they had, like, a moment where they could, like, I think if they just said something about trust rather than being like, don't do this, it's bad for you. You're going to make monsters appear if you do this.
You're going to fuck things up for all of us if you feel a little bit scared.
Yeah, I just feel like maybe they should have just been like, trust us. And then they had, like, the power up of trust moment.
Yeah, at the ending.
Or like, think about all of the times the Magic Knights have helped us.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, as we were saying, that it's ultimately coming down to that the people of Sephira who are left need to not focus on the fear that they feel, but and the trust and the happiness they feel over the Magic Knights. And I do think the show gets into that. I mean, that is basically how the Knights defeat Debonair in the end. Like everyone basically has a big Care Bear stare moment where they send all their positive feelings to the Magic Knights, and they are able to use that to juice up their magic to defeat her at last.
I do believe in fairies. I do.
Look, it's cheesy, but I like it.
It's a kids show. It's a kids show. You know?
It worked for the ending better than the one episode where it focused on like the kids, and them creating the monsters with their fear. Because the ending, I didn't think I had any problem with it, but when it focused on the kids and they were just like, "Don't cry," I was just kind of like, "Well, that's a little weird." But I do think I think it worked better in the ending of, you know, everyone having the "we trust the Magic Knights."
Yeah. So, now that we have finished the TV series, do you guys have any final thoughts? Would you recommend it?
Watching it the second time around, I will more openly acknowledge that, yes, it is kind of a flawed work. This first season is stronger than the second, but I can't hate on this show because its messages are so good and because it's so important in my own journey as an anime and manga fan. So, yes, I would recommend it.
Yeah, you've got that connection to it.
My final thoughts are that great first season, mid-second season. I don't know if I would recommend it to newer anime fans. It is a very, like, dated show in a lot of different ways, and not even just like, oh, it's problematic, but just like in general, it's kind of dated. But for anyone who's like into anime and they're willing to check out older stuff, or they want to like see all the stuff that like Shojo has to offer, I would definitely recommend it to like someone who's willing. But otherwise, I don't know if I would make too many people sit through season 2. Maybe I would just say, watch season 1. You'll get the gist of it.
Yeah, I think I would agree mostly with that, Colleen. If someone was interested in watching it, I wouldn't try to dissuade them. If there's someone coming along who's had a great deal of nostalgia for it, I wouldn't say, actually, that show that you love is shit.
Yeah.
Which I might do for some shows, because I'm not very nice sometimes. I also think that, like, this could be something to watch with a child who is in the intended audience, to help, like, lead some certain conversations, to give them a framework for dealing with certain emotions that they might end up having to face in their lives, that they will have to face at some point in their lives, that they might not have that framework for otherwise. You know, I really like fiction as a teaching tool when it's used intentionally and combined with talking about things. Yeah, so if someone wanted to see it as a part of anime history, if they wanted to watch it because they love Clamp, which isn't me, sorry. If they really, really want to see the mechas, if they played Super Robot Wars and wanted to know where the series came from, you know, I'm not going to tell anyone, no, don't watch it, but I'm also probably not going to sit there and say, yeah, you gotta watch it, the same way I might for an Escaflowne. Or, speaking of series that people have blinding nostalgia for, a Fushigi Yugi, which is the shoujo isekai that I hold closest to my heart personally, and I know Megan doesn't like, and would probably reverse her opinions about from my opinions.
Another series that it's been a long time since I've watched, so I don't know if I can have any opinions on.
It's good. Your opinion is that it's good.
Okay.
So, as we revealed earlier, we will be having one more episode talking about Magic Knight Rayearth, where we will be covering the 3-episode OVA and the Sega Saturn game. It's going to be a wild ride, y'all.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen one episode of that OVA. Very different vibes. Very different vibes. So, thank you all so much for joining us on this journey to Sephiroth. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard, you can find more from the team on animefeminist.com with lots and lots of podcasts and articles. You can come here and comment and tell us why we are wrong about your favorite anime. If you really enjoyed what you heard, you can donate to us at patreon.com/animefeminist and Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/animefeminist. The Patreon is how we keep the lights on, pay those monthly recurring costs. Ko-fi is how we get a little bit of extra for our projects. Recently, as of this recording, we were able to raise our pay rate for contributors to $75 an article.
Woo!
Hopefully, listeners in 2025, because it will probably be then by the time you're hearing this, we were able to do it again, thanks to the donations of listeners like you. So, you can find our various social media by going to our link tree, linktr.ee/animefeminist. You will find our Mastodon and our Blue Sky, not our Twitter because we don't officially use that anymore. You'll find our Tumblr. And until then, remember, if you feel fear, you are destroying the world for everyone else.